Avengers Endgame, the highest grossing movie of all time, did not win the Oscar for Best Visual Effects. So, what does the title of highest grossing movie of all time even mean if it didn't win a single Oscar? Is it even a worthwhile movie? Corridor Crew has done a VFX Artist react to Avengers Endgame Bad Great CGI. I personally think it should have won. That's just my personal belief. That's what I was rooting for. I knew it wasn't going to, but I thought it should have.
And how are the duckers in the shot?
There.
Oh, what?
There were a couple of innovations in the way that we approached Thanos' facial work.
The shockwave.
We had one version that was much bigger. Maybe you've discovered something that we didn't even intend to put in the movie.
Wait, they got the actual VFX guy?
Welcome back to another very special episode.
He's gonna
of
be
Visual
like,
Effects
those are
Artist
bad.
React. Today we're talking to Matt Itkin. Now, Matt is one of the visual effects supervisors at Weta, and it's an incredible honor to have him here on the show. He's worked on a ton of movies, everything from Avengers Endgame all the way back to Lord of the Rings. He was in our Lord of the Rings special.
I'm the guy scanning the cave troll with the really early laser scanner.
That's so cool. Tell us a little bit about what your role is. What does it mean to be a visual effects supervisor?
My role is that I'm kind of the contact point between the team at Weta Digital, producing the visual effects work on a given show, and the people at the studio. Like, I work with the team at Marvel on the Avengers films. I'm providing, the finished visual effects shots to them to go into their movie.
So, like, when you go to the dentist and you have, like, the nurse that, like, works for a while on your teeth, and then the dentist comes in, just, like, touches everything briefly at the very end. Is that you, basically?
Possibly.
So, Endgame was actually nominated for an Academy Award for Best Visual Effects.
We're also nominated for the BAFTA, which is the British Academy of Film and Television Awards. So I get to fly to London, go to the BAFTAs, and then come back here next week for the Oscars.
Oh, wow.
Who knew that a career in visual effects was so star-studded and...
So jet-setty. Usually it's not. Yeah.
Aw, poor guys. Was this part of the campaign?
One of the scenes that you guys were responsible for in Avengers Endgame was the climactic end battle scene.
Yeah, that was pretty much what we did. Our work started when Thanos turns up in the 8 ship and destroys the Avengers compound, and we go all the way through to Tony doing the snap and his ultimate demise.
Spoilers ahead. Somehow haven't seen this movie.
Wait till you see this next one. Everybody dies.
Dude.
Not everybody.
I think it worked.
This was a pretty shocking moment in the movie. It's like, oh, okay.
Oh.
It's like, and roll credits. Shockwave.
That giant explosion, we worked on that a lot because it had to look like it was going to create this huge crater, but at the same time, it couldn't look like it just blew them all to pieces. So we had one version that was much bigger. They were like, yeah, that's great, but nobody could survive that.
And is that all CG5? Is it all dynamics and simulation?
Yep. Yeah,
So
for
by
sure.
comparison...
We shared the shot with ILM, so at a certain point, here, it becomes an ILM shot. They did all this work here. We did all the outside stuff. You should talk to them. I'm sure they'd love to come in as well.
And be like, hey, I applied for an internship a while ago.
I'm always impressed by the level of consistency between all the different effects houses delivering the same character in different scenes worked on by completely different people.
Yeah, the team at Marvel, they do a lot of work in terms of giving us each notes. We'll show a version of Thanos, and they'll like aspects of it, and they'll take that shot and show it to DD, and we'll share geometry and we'll share textures. They're completely different assets.
So there are two completely different 3D models of Thanos that are brought up to the exact same level of quality, so you can't tell the difference between them.
Well, that's what we tried to achieve. I mean,
I'd say you succeeded. I didn't realize there were multiple different versions.
If you enjoyed the show and you want to keep watching, well, please consider subscribing so that it shows up in your subscription feed and you never miss an episode.
I thought by eliminating half of life, the other half would thrive.
So when you have a character like Thanos, who is completely digital, but obviously driven by a real actor, what are the main steps between him acting and what we finally see in the movie?
he'll be wearing a suit that's marked up, so we'll get his body performance from that, and we'll also dot up his face. He'll be wearing a head-mounted camera rig. They're filming the dots on his face as he performs. Often what we do is we'll do motion capture that is happening at the same time as live-action photography. So through infrared motion capture, we can capture the suit dots without polluting the light that the director of photography is creating on the set.
Okay.
I feel like a lot of people misunderstand how motion capture works in movies. They just kind of assume that the motion is captured and then it's just applied to a 3D model and that's all you have to do. In reality,
That would be amazing if that was the case. Motion capture really plays to creating his movement, but the number of times that we have raw motion capture data going onto Thanos is 0. We need to clean it up, but we also need to just find Thanos in the motion capture performance.
Oh, interesting. That's why Andy
Some of these
Serkis never
fight
wins.
beats weren't actually Josh. Our stuntman is performing the more dramatic movements, and we're motion capturing the stunty. But even then, he's still not going to move the same way as an 8-foot-tall, muscle-bound Thanos would move. So the fantastic animation supervisor at Weta, Sidney Combo, he would dial in what he would call the body mechanic of Thanos. So he's getting the weight and maybe slowing down the movement a little. That's something that we'll keyframe on top of the motion capture data as well.
Oh, fascinating.
When you're dealing with this much armor on a character, it can be really hard to animate all of it and have it move correctly and slide over itself without clipping.
Yeah.
So some people pointed out to us in this one shot of his glove, you can see his finger bits clip through the fitting a little bit.
I know we missed that.
oh no.
Is that so? That's something that just nobody happened to see it until it was out in theaters.
Yeah. I wish we caught it at the time. It just goes to show there's always a little bit more that you can
Bad
do.
CGI.
We're
Why you
doing a
didn't
lot of
win?
work on the armor. You don't want to constrain what Josh is doing on set. You want him to be able to perform, and then you just have to make the armor work to that. So there's a lot of sleight of hand going on, bending of things that should be rigid. It comes back to that thing of craft, you know, bringing an artist's hands-on craft approach to sculpt that suit.
I'm gonna enjoy it. Very, very much.
Can we talk about Thanos' face for a moment?
Sure.
Dude, the pores stretch.
Yes, they do. There are a couple of innovations in the way that we approach Thanos' facial work. Up until Infinity War, we would go straight from the facial motion capture of Josh to the performance of Thanos. What we started doing on Infinity War was introducing this intermediary step, which we call the actor puppet. We've got the footage of Josh from the head-mounted cameras, we've got a digital Josh, and then we've got a digital Thanos. And we can see very clearly if it's deviating a little bit from what Josh was doing. And then it's actually a
Damn,
reasonably
Josh Brolin looks like a
straightforward
Mortal
process to
Kombat
migrate
character there.
the animation curves from one puppet to the
DLC
next.
coming
So
back.
what you're telling me is that there's a perfect digital double of Josh Brolin that you can drop into every Thanos shot in the movie.
Kind of a little bit like a Mission Impossible pull off the mask.
Get a Josh Brolin cut.
I think people mainly look at the eyes. That's often a criticism of digital performance. If it's not working, that people say that the eyes look dead. So we have to get the eyes right. And we spend a lot of time lighting the eyes so that they have a nice highlight. So we'll put a special light in the scene, and it's a little small area light, but quite bright. Then the eyes will pick it up. It'll have a very subtle effect over the rest of him.
Eyes are a view into the soul.
So green screen. You guys are using a lot of
Nipples
green
of the
screen in
face.
this, as well as rotoscoping.
Yeah.
How are you getting such perfect edges in your green screen?
I mean, they're good green screens. They're well lit and they're clean. And then we've got a lot of really highly
far away
advanced
from those.
techniques. We're doing parts of the hair differently. If we get something really gnarly, you might have to match move in a digital version of the actor and replace the plate hair with
What?
CG hair.
Wow. When your helmet comes off, there's
Really?
that CG hair for a brief moment for the ponytail to flip.
I think that's just a warp, actually. And I think she might have flicked her head. That's the Howard the Duck shot.
Wait, Howard the Duck is in the shot?
Right.
Eh.
Yeah.
He's got a gun. I forgot he had a
17
gun.
frames of him, ladies and gentlemen. In one of the studio reviews, they were like, "Oh, wouldn't it be great to get Howard the Duck in the movie somewhere?" So we had to migrate this asset. They sent us the Howard the Duck Luma had done for Guardians 2. We gave him one of the Ravager guns. Just way too big for him.
I just noticed that each of those portals have like a different color scheme inside of it, and it represented the Infinity Gauntlet with the different colors.
That's
You've got
cool.
Wakanda, you've got the blue of deep space. Maybe you've discovered
Purple.
something that we didn't even intend to put in the movie.
If you guys want to see us react to any
That's
specific
cool.
movies or TV shows, please leave a comment in the description below and let us know, and we will take a look at it.
Get a Birdemic episode.
It's just, I don't think anyone's ever seen just so many like heroes on screen at a single time.
The filmmakers, they managed to balance all that stuff so that it's personal. A lot of it is these little beats, when we get these character moments.
Changing cameras.
Give me that.
You have the little one.
You have the
And we
little
get
one.
the reunion of Tony and Spidey. That's the stuff that makes it successful. We're just really there supporting these fantastic character moments.
So out of this entire sequence that Weta worked on, what do you think was probably the most challenging single shot of the entire sequence?
There's a little shot called the Wanna. It was the most scary part of the cut for a long time for me, but now I can enjoy it.
The what? Oh, yeah. Oh, that's an amazing shot.
So many layers of complexity, everything from clashing armies to digital doubles to animation to like real
Hell
life
yeah.
and CG at the same time to explosions to giant monsters.
Oh, yeah.
We started working on it really early
So
on,
cool.
and it was one of the last shots we finished. So we had like a sub-team
wow.
working on it. It had its own animation supervisor, its own animation team, who are building the elements of the shot, populating the scene. We're iterating the whole time, so as soon as there's anything that's even half decent, we'll pass that down the line to lighting. All that lighting work is going on at the same time as the animation work. What's really nice about this is that the characters are rimlit by the sun.
So you have to
This
really
definitely
coordinate
did not
what
deserve
light
the
is.
Oscar.
So do you work up like a master
100%.
lighting position going into a lot of this stuff?
One thing we do, which is exactly what they do
Said
on set or on location, is don't worry about any sort of consistency to the position of the sun, the key light. So they'll always put that behind the character that they're filming. The thing I like to show people that really explains that is a scene from the very end of the first Independence Day movie.
The sun is always behind everybody.
Yeah, which you kind of have to do, because if you were filming it from the other side, they would just be completely burnt out. So you're exposing for the shadows. We try and adopt these principles because they're established cinematographic principles that work.
So I know for these scenes here, they actually film on a practical set, but do you end up having to replace any of the foreground elements?
Yeah, sometimes we do. There's a little bit of a set element behind these guys here, which we kept because it was appropriate. But we did this thing where we essentially lifted the actors off the set and put them in a predominantly CG environment.
That sounds like a lot of rotoscoping. So you basically cut out each character and none of the background is real, just the characters are real.
Exactly.
God.
Obviously, Tony
Didn't
has
deserve it.
CG. So whenever we see him by himself, really the only thing we're keeping is his head anyway. This was the last shot that we delivered on the show.
I love how he like
And it
snaps
was
it.
about 2 weeks before the premiere, so it was coming down to the wire.
Down to the line there.
You know, they had versions of the shot, but they kept wanting it to change a bit, so we were happy to keep working on it. The thing that was really important in the end was showing that Tony is suffering all this damage, because ultimately it's going to kill him. And so we had to know that he was making a huge sacrifice, but also it couldn't be so flashy that it distracted away from his performance. We had some of those arcs of energy crawling right up into his face more, and then it was like you just looked at that, you didn't look at him.
Right, you really have to be with him in this moment.
You've got to be with him, exactly.
I didn't even notice that till right there.
One on the cheek.
Yeah.
So I feel like you guys had a big creative challenge here with Iron Man dying, and that you need to show that the wounds are fatal, but you can't be so gory or grisly as to not make this a family film.
Exactly, and that was something we explored for a long time through concept art to start off with, and it's a little bit similar to the Snap. We had to allow him to retain his dignity through this moment.
How much of this was makeup versus digital?
It's entirely digital,
So he has no makeup on him on set at all. He's just-
exactly, and that was a really good decision that they made to do it that way, because if they had put prosthetics on him, essentially they would have been locked in to that look.
Yeah. You
And-
get more flexibility by doing it digitally, especially when you know you can achieve a photorealistic result.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of relies on that.
I read that most of the wounds are actually just two-dimensional tracks as opposed to full 3D.
Yeah, exactly. We match moved his head, but we found that his facial performance was so subtle that we could, just using like optical flow type techniques, warp the digital prosthetic onto the movement of his face.
Jeeps.
So we didn't have to try and match move his facial performance. The other thing was for us, we had to sit on this secret for 6 or 8 months.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And it was like, oh my god, if this leaks, we are done.
Am I in trouble?
We can keep a secret here. We've never had a leak, touch wood. We just have to get down and do it, and they were totally on board with it, and it was a total surprise for audiences worldwide.
Can you speak about anything coming up down the pipeline at Weta?
Well, we're working on the Black Widow movie, which opens soon. We have an ongoing relationship with Marvel, and it's fantastic. The work that they get us engaged in is challenging and diverse, and they're great films. There's this great kind of like storytelling that's going on with the MCU that is just really exciting to be part of.
Wow, well, that's been a crazy episode. They're getting all this information straight from the source.
Whenever we're sitting
So
here on the
much
couch,
bad
most of the
CGI.
time we're
I
kind of
know.
just guessing. So to actually hear a true professional say exactly how you achieved some of these incredible results is really cool to hear.
I mean, I've watched some of your stuff, and you guys are pretty onto it. So
Well, that's really good to hear. If you want to learn more about Weta, go check out their website, at wetafx.co.nz. There's articles on how some of these effects are done. Lots of great information, so do not discount just going and checking out that website.
it's great to be here.
Well, thank you, Matt. I really appreciate it.
How do you direct any of this if you don't have, what level of understanding must the Russo brothers have on visual effects in order to direct any of this?
I mean,
I can't wrap my head around that.
Yeah, that I'm sure they change, but I'm sure they have a ton of storyboards
Yeah.
and previs and concept art. I just can't imagine how you map all your shots in these places that have practical elements but are surrounded by green screens. You're probably not going to use any of the practical elements. You're going to stitch things together and then to compose these fluid shots that move. He said that oneer shot that has so much going on in it and so many layers, and so much of that appears to be not what was actually in the room they shot.
Right.
Yeah, it is mind-blowing, really, what they're able to achieve.
I'm really not just saying it to pander to audiences. I really thought this film should have won. When I was watching the Oscars, I was like, 1917 is undoubtedly gonna win. That's what I put my vote down for. But I was like, I'm hoping I'm wrong, and I'm hoping Avengers Endgame does take the Oscar for this. I think the reason why something like 1917 probably took it, you can't really tell when there's visual effects on screen, whereas a movie like Endgame has so much visual effects that there are times where you're like, that doesn't look entirely real. The flip side though, there's so much in here, I'm not even sure at times what is visual effects and what is practical. I mean, they didn't comment on it here, but there's even a little moment when they're talking about Thanos and the mocap suit, and they're showing the stunt double for Thanos, and the guy doing Cap, there's no way he's throwing a shield around and a hammer. But when they're showing the footage, I'm like, he's not even holding anything. They're inserting all those things, and I thought there would be at least some practical stuff there. Or even the fact of how they were talking with Tony Stark in the suit, that, yeah, they put him in the suit and they're filming there on set, but really all they're taking is just his head primarily.
Oh, yeah.
Just for the motions. They built this world to life. Honestly, I don't think this movie would have been as big of a hit if we were all pulled out by this grand finale going, this looks fake. There's a reason why it's so effective. Yes, the personal moments that they're talking about and what makes it work so well, and how VFX are in support of that. At the same time, though, I'm like, they built so many things here that for the most part I couldn't tell when things were practical and when things were not. And they interviewed another visual effects artist when they talked about the Cap versus Cap scene and how they built that whole set out of visual effects. This movie was the one that ultimately deserved the award because of how much inventiveness and imagination was put forth to make this work, especially when they're talking about working against the clock and a couple of months out they have to do some last minute things. Very impressive stuff.
I'm torn on this too because I don't know which angle to approach it from. I feel like there is something to be said for that idea that some of the best CG is the CG you have no idea was even there to begin with, and so for Avengers Endgame, I can see that maybe being some kind of kneecap in the sense that it's I am not sitting there watching that movie thinking about the CG, but I'm never not aware that there's a shitload of CG at all times in these Marvel movies. And one thing I've learned about this kind of thing is that also, every movie now has way more CG than you would expect to build the world, to change landscapes, to change architecture and stuff. But that being said, Endgame does seem like an achievement in just the sheer scope of techniques they're using, the sheer amount of different shoot days they must have been stitching together and organizing and keeping moving. While we can debate which is more meritable, a vast array of complex effects or effects that you have no idea about, I think there's no arguing that a movie like this is an achievement. And I really, really hope, because VFX artists especially, are kind of notoriously undervalued in the industry. I really hope that the 25 visual effects houses who have provided all the effects for this movie were compensated properly, because that's the other thing too, is for these scale movies, you have a whole bunch of people working simultaneously. And that's something that I thought was really interesting about this video too, is they said like, okay, we've got our model of Thanos, but then Industrial Light and Magic has theirs, and then we got to send information to them, and they send a little information back, and we got to make sure everything matches.
At the very beginning, they were talking about there was that one shot where it goes into like an ILM shot, but it's supposed to look like one smooth little shot. I think the VFX artists are being more recognized. Channels like Corridor Crew make a huge difference. I think it's because of the clip hand with Thanos. That's why they didn't win. That's the main reason why.
The Academy was like, oh, we found the mistake.
That's what it is.
We found it.
That's what it is. We're able to notice it.
Found it, and then, Mark Ruffalo's head in that Hulkbuster, he's a little bobbly in that last movie, so we can't. I thought that was interesting, too, about the digital makeup that they did on Tony Stark's face, because I thought that would have been practical, at least in some part, and it seems like so much of every Iron Man performance is probably just his head stitched on, and then severely edited.
Even Iron Man 1, where he's mainly Tony Stark.
Yes, he's stitched onto a suit.
The whole thing in the cage.
Special, little Armani suit.
The big thing of what they were talking about, even with the mocap performances, CGI performances, is in the eyes. That's like the biggest thing. As a matter of fact, one of the distracting elements to me, and this is a different kind of VFX, was in The Irishman with De Niro's eyes. I know it's a different color than his natural eye color, but there was something in his eyes that just felt too uncanny to me, and that's what would kind of pull me out for like the first hour of the film, was right here. That's actually not a point I've really thought about, but truly that does make a big difference. I've heard with actors, especially, like when I would watch documentaries about James Dean, or here he talks about Ryan Gosling, is so much of performance is really within the eyes. It's like a lens into the soul. If anything, you got to get down right. I can imagine the eyes are the most important thing. And then when they were showing clips of bad CGI, I was like, oh yeah, I guess the main key, it's not everything, but one of the most important integral ingredients would have to be the eyes. And I love what they were saying about Tony Stark's snap. I've seen the movie like 4 times now, and I've never actually, I'm so focused on his performance and his eyes and the glove that I've never actually noticed the electricity like running up his neck and the cheek. I'm glad they knew to dial it back on certain things, because it could ultimately pull you out and be distracting, like what you were talking about with the makeup on his death scene. I thought that was some practical effects. And then they showed us behind the scenes footage, he's just in a black shirt.
Some dots. It's always just dots and triangles.
And again, I gotta say, it's something as subtle of a performance as that moment is. A lot of credit goes to the actors as well for helping to bring a lot of this to life. They have no idea how a lot of this is actually going to look by the time it's all said and done, but they really brought that moment especially to life, because that looked practical effects to me. At least some of it did. I thought the suit was a little CGI, but I thought all this was practical.
Yeah, I would have too. Looking back at all these Robert Zemeckis animated movies, that's the one gripe everybody says. Dead eyes is like the big thing about CG faces, and so to see them adjusting the light and what lengths they go to there. One thing that I just had never thought of, but that makes total sense, is in all those motion capture performances, it's not just slapping a model on top of the motion and being not done with it. Yeah, it's like you got to go in and you got to probably tweak the performance information you already got, because there's probably already going to be some stuff that's a little janky here and there, and then change physics, and they showed that I think in one of the other videos with the Hulk, where they had like an actor with like a big Hulk head and shoulders on his head and shoulders, and then they were just using that for scope and scale and stuff, and the amount of like forethought that goes into these things must be staggering.
Even in the Tony death scene, you see like War Machine, Don Cheadle, here in the behind the scenes, just Don Cheadle putting his arm up against him, and then they got to put this giant ass War Machine hand right there in the shot, and they have to do that throughout this whole thing. Dealing with scale, I'd never really put together in mind, but it makes me kind of wonder how when they would do mocap for characters like Smeagol or Smog, things like that. Anyway, this was great. They definitely did not talk about the bad CGI that much, because they had that guy there.
That clipping issue.
We got one in there to justify the title and this segment.
Endgame, bad and worse CGI.
Endgame, great CGI and a moment.
Get a pissed off intern to come in for the next video who's like fired from Weta, and then we'll do that.
Yeah, because I was like, well, for bad CGI, there were the moments that pulled me out were very early on in this movie. That was when you first start seeing Thanos on the farm. He looked incredibly digital to me when he just has like his shirt on and his arms. Like there are certain shots there that look not realistic to me. I thought they might talk about that moment, but they're not going to.
Can't acknowledge truly
not when the guy's right there.
yeah, acknowledge moments we truly could have improved on, given more time and resources.
All right, guys, what'd you think of this video? Corridor Crew, thanks for putting this bad boy together. One of these days, you guys will be working on the huge films as well. One of my favorite moments of this was when the VFX artist from Endgame was saying, I've seen a few of your guys' videos, and you guys are usually on point. That's a great sign right there. Subscribe to Corridor Crew. Make sure to subscribe to The Real Rejects. Click that notification bell to get notified whenever we got a YouTube video up. Last but not least, Lance Dorr, buddy. Wanted to make sure to shout you out on this one because when we covered the other Avengers Endgame visual effects video, that was specifically your request, which opened up my eyes to how much VFX was on display when I didn't even realize there was. So thank you for that. Lance is getting married this year. I've been doing some poem shout outs. What I call my core artistic integrity are these poetry shout outs right here. Sometimes I make weird, jokey ones that don't make any sense. I wrote you a sincere one. I am excited for your wedding, Lance. I'm excited for your wedding dance. The knot will be tied with your bride-to-be, Nuttie, or Nutty. Let's go with Nuttie. Vowing to be together till one of you does die. As she takes on the surname of Dorr, I hope your love does soar, that it's filled with love and thunder, like Thor 4. I hope you two stay on the right course, and that it never ends in divorce. That being said, in the case of a breakup, make sure to get a prenup. I know a great lawyer, but I also know a great caterer. Whichever one you need, we can book them on your calendar. Great work, John.
Watch Marriage Story.